Welcome, everybody. My name is Laura Allison. I am the project manager that has been working with the state of Delaware on the PCI compliance project. And also on the call this afternoon, we have Mr. Brent Hobby, who is the QSA, who has been working with the state of Delaware for several years alongside with me to help get the state into compliance with PCI DSS. So today what we're going to do is walk you through an SAQA, which is your online presence, right? So when you get into Campus Guard Central, you're going to navigate to this page once you click on the SAQ that you're assigned to. And this landing page is called our Merchant Dashboard. Now this is a demo, so it looks a little bit different. For example, on the left-hand side where it says 4.0 Demo SAQA, that's going to be the name of the SAQ that you're completing, right? So, the DMV, health department, things like that, something will be there. Some of the information is going to look the same, right? Like the customer, it's the Delaware State Treasury. The SAQ type is going to be an SAQA, so that's correct. So is the year and the version. The due date and the SAQ expiration date, don't pay attention to those dates per se. They might change as you get in there and you start completing these SAQs. And then there'll be a mid number assigned as well, and that will appear. But since this is a demo, there is no mid number listed. In the middle of the page, we have a pie chart, and this is going to show the progress of the SAQ as you get in there and you start completing the SAQ yourself. The colors are going to change, right? It's all purple, so it says not answered. But as you get in and you start working through that, the colors are going to change based upon the answers that you click on within the SAQ itself. And then over here on the left-hand side, we have authorized users. So if there are individuals who are assigned to complete this SAQ, right, it could just be you, or perhaps, there are other individuals that are helping you complete this SAQ. The people who have access on a user level basis will be listed here on the left-hand side. So that's what you're going to see. Dashboard wise, and then there are a couple of other buttons that are shown here, but the one that we really want to pay attention to is edit SAQ. So my colleague Mr. Brent Hobby is driving this workshop. He is going to click edit SAQ and he can take it from there. Additionally, there'll be some information populated in the chat. He'll refer to that so you'll know where to go look when the time is right. So Brent, you want to take it from here?
Sure. So everybody, if we click Edit SAQ, thanks everyone for making time. I appreciate it. We hope this will make it easier for you. So on the SAQ, the self-assessment questionnaire, one thing I'll point out for those of you who did this last year is we've changed, the PCI Council has changed the forms. Last year was version 3.2.1. We've moved to version 4.0. So if you remember, there'll be some slight differences from last year, but fundamentally all still the same. Okay, so part one is our contact information. So our company name will all be the state of Delaware. And in doing business as, this is your merchant area, your agency name, whatever it is that we're calling for this for your area. For contact information, this is you, the person filling out the SAQ. And your actual contact information, in here along with your email address. And then assuming your agency has a physical mailing address, you'll want to put that in the fields below. And if you have a website, please include that as well for your contact information. Okay. For the assessor part on the ISA names, we'll leave that blank. And the part below that, the QSA, that's me, should be pre-filled out. So once you've entered your contact information and the rest of it should be pre-filled out, just go down to the bottom and click the red button that says Save Next. Okay, in the executive summary part, we're going to, here at the first part, 2A, we're going to click the types of the ways we take credit cards. There's really, for an SAQA, for most of us, we're talking about websites, so we're talking about e-commerce. There are other ways an SAQA can come into play, but for the most part, for us, this is e-commerce. SAQAs are for fully outsourced payment channels. And we'll say no for any other payment channel. So this is basically just us doing our e-commerce space. In part 2B, we're looking for a description of why we take credit cards. In other words, what are we taking credit cards for? What are we selling? For those of you doing things like selling for fees, for registration, for payments of things, we can say, and I know we've got two different processors going on here. So one option would be, that we accept payment cards online via Fiserv. For those of you still using Govolution, another option. These are in chat, by the way, as well, that you can just copy and paste them and modify them for your area. You'll only want to use one of these. These are two examples that we could put here. So this is a why do we take credit cards? A very short explanation. So for part 2C, this is asking, how we take credit cards. It's not going to be much different, but it could be slightly different. And again, I'll give you two examples, which we will also put in chat. Okay, for those of you using Govolution, we'll reference Govolution. For those of you using Fiserv, we reference Fiserv. If you have any questions about these descriptions, please contact us and we'll help you put together a valid description. For segmentation, we're not using segmentation for purposes of validation. On the facility type, it's a little different for a web server because it's hosted somewhere else. So typically we're going to say Office 1, and then whatever the most reasonable location is. So if you're in Wilmington, you can put that. If you're in Dover, you can put that, or wherever you are. It's a little bit different for a web server because it's actually hosted somewhere. Okay. For part 2E are we using any validated products or solutions? We're going to say no. And then for third-party service providers, these are the folks that are our customers. So we're going to say for store, process, transmit, yes. Now, some of these questions might slightly change based on who's doing your hosting for you, but for the most part, these are going to be if your website is being hosted by Govolution, then we would say yes for the second one. Otherwise, we're going to say no. So if your website's being hosted by somebody, then these next two would be yes. If it's being hosted by the state, these next two would be no. So here we could say if you're using Govolution, you can. This is an example.
That information's in the chat as well for the E.
It's in the chat as well. It's in the chat as well. The Fiserv is always the processor. Or if you have a different web host, if it's being hosted by another third party, you would put that here as well. So instead of, for example, up here at Govolution where we said web host, if we had another third party doing that for us, you would list it on the next page, on the next slide. If Fiserv is also your gateway, you would do the same thing here. You could type gateway here like that. Okay. All right. For part 2G, again, if you have any questions about the third parties, please get in contact with us and we'll be happy to help you figure that out. Leave Part 2G blank because that summary is going to be finished and completed by the portal. So scroll on down to the bottom to H, and this is our eligibility to complete an SAQ-A, and we're going to check all of these. Okay, now we're into the actual assessments. If you look over here on the navigation side, you'll note that we're in requirement 2 right now. We'll go through the process and do 3, 6, 8, 11, 12, and so forth. All right, so build and maintain a secure network. This is in place. So this is actually done by the vendor and so forth. So that will click in place. Next. While we're clicking, the only 2 compliant answers are in place and not applicable. If one, and we will have that not applicable, which we'll have it right here. Anywhere we pick not applicable, we'll also have to explain it in the comment. So this is talking about stored cardholder data. So the state by policy doesn't store cardholder data. So there's nothing to protect. So whenever, and Laura will have this in the chat, but we're going to say cardholder data is never stored as the explanation. Now, once you've typed that, if you want to highlight it and copy it, we're going to use that as our explanation for these questions about storing data. And we'll want the answers to be exactly the same because the comment field is sensitive to case, punctuation, extra spaces, and all that kind of thing. You'll understand later when we get down to a little bit further in the process, all those will be copied down and repeated in a form later on. So we'll want these to be exactly the same, so it only has to copy down the ones that work. Okay, so 3.2, again, we don't store data. So we'll do the same. So those 2 are NAs. We'll click next. Now, the state does maintain a vulnerability management program. So for those websites that are hosted by the state, these answers, this is in place. If you're talking about a website that's hosted by Govolution, then we would click non-applicable, and we would enter requirement. And I don't believe, or if you want to put this in the chat too, requirement met by service provider. And then again, we'll copy it. Again, we're being answered. This is for as if it were. This is for a Govolution hosted website or any other service provider hosting your website. If it's the state hosted website, this is in place. Okay. And again, same answer here. And again, same. If it's a state hosted website, this would be in place. And same with these last 2. Again, if you have any questions about this, please contact us. If it's a state-hosted website, these answers are in place. If it's Govolution or another third party hosting it, it's not applicable with requirement met by service provider. Okay, strong access control measures. This is in place. These are state managed accounts and policies, so that it follows the rules. Again, in place, in place, in place, in place, in place, and in place. So again, all these, this is the identity management system maintained by the state. Okay, again, you'll note here, this is physical access to cardholder data. We've already said we don't store any data. So again, cardholder data is never stored. And we don't have any offline media. We don't have any media. We're not storing it anywhere. Okay, so all these are non-applicable, with cardholder data is never stored as the answer. Regularly monitor and test networks. Again, this is similar to the other one. So if it's a state-hosted website, the answer is yes. And if it's hosted by someone else, it's a requirement met by service provider. So again, for Govolution, this is and for a state, it's in place. Okay. Or Govolution or any third-party hosted web environment. Okay. Requirement 12 is these are questions about the information security policy and the procedures that are generally, most of it is maintained by the state or by the Office of State Treasurer for the PCI stuff, or in your documented merchant procedures. So these are all in place. TPSP, again, third-party service provider. This is the state's vendor management and procurement processes. And this last question is about incident response plan. The state has one. The Office of State Treasurer is involved if it's a PCI one. And then, of course, you have the very short version of how do you engage the process in your merchant documentation. And then we're done with the questions. So now we're getting into the appendices. So we're going to, Appendix B, it's asking about compensating controls. We're not using compensating controls. Those are things we would do if we were meeting compliance some other way than the PCI Council wants us to. We're just going to leave this blank and click Next. On Appendix C, if you remember, this is why we copied all those explanations to make them the same. We're going to click on this button that says Populate Appendix, and you'll note that it copies it down for each of the requirements, everything that we've said was not applicable. Had we not done the copy for each one, then every different explanation would have been brought down separately. So that's why we wanted to copy the exact copies. All right, so if we did it right, Section 3, this box compliant will already be checked. If it's not checked for you, then that probably means we accidentally left one of the questions blank earlier. We'll have to go back and fix it. But as long as it's compliant, we're good. If we were purposefully attesting non-compliant, this is where we would provide a date by which we expect to be compliant, but we're attesting compliance, so leave the rest of it blank and click Save. All right, again, this is an acknowledgement that to the best of our ability, we have answered these questions correctly. So click all three and click Save. And then Part 3B, this is the merchant attestation. This may be you if you're the appropriate executive officer, or it could be your agency head, or it could be the head of school, or whoever it is that's the executive attesting for this. Fia, I don't know if you want to make further comment on that.
Thank you so much, Brent. So to Brent's comments, this could be your school business administrator, and at some time it could be the actual representative completing the SAQ. Once you have determined the appropriate level of executive officer within your prospective school or agency, please fill that person's name out here. This particular individual will have the option to either lock the SAQ in the portal, or we can download the actual completed document for their wet signature and upload. And we'll show that to you as we get to the finishing stages here with the completion of the SAQ.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So when you're done entering the name and title, save. Again, this is me, so this is the QSA that fills out. This should be pre-filled out, so just click save. This is a question about if there was an ISA, an internal security assessor involved, so leave it blank. Click next. Part 4 is an action plan for non-compliant requirements. So if any of our requirements had been deemed not compliant, this is where we would explain how and when we're going to get them compliant. Leave this blank and click save. And then we're done. So at this point, if we're really done, you can click finalize and lock. If you think you're going to have to go back and make a few changes, verify something, you can just leave it here. You can print a draft and review it. For our purposes, we're going to, if you finalize it and lock it, it doesn't do anything. It just locks the SAQ and lets OST know that you're done. It also saves a PDF copy of the SAQ in your document locker. So we'll see that here in just a second. It takes a minute or so to get it out there. And which you can then print and save, or you could physically, if you want your the executive representative to physically sign it, you can do it that way. So it gives you a PDF that you can print. So you'll note here, you see it popped up, SAQ A 4.0. You can view it, and then you can, from there, you can download it or print it as you wish. So you'll note this is the official PDF format of the PCI Council's documents. And then you'll note here that the purple pie chart is now complete. So we've got green for in place, yellow for non-applicable. Remember, those are the only two answers we want, so we're good. And Fia, I believe you wanted to speak about the checklist.
Yes, thank you so much, Brent. My name is Fia Quesa, Director of Operations and Funds Management. PCI Merchant Services is under my purview within the Office of the State Treasurer. What I'm sharing with you next in the chat is going to be a link to the PCI DSS resource page created by the State Treasurer in partnership with Campus Card. When you click that link, I will share my screen. It's going to take you to a landing page on our website that has been created with you in mind. This page has all of the items that you need, or I should really say documentation you need to be able to complete your overall attestment with the state of Delaware to FISERV. What you're going to zero in your attention to is the annual checklist. I've already opened up the annual checklist for ease of use. When you open up this annual checklist, you will review items 1 through 9 to ensure you have all of your pertinent documents uploaded to the Campus Card document locker, which is referenced here. If you have any questions in regards to these items, you can feel free to reach out to Vivek Maharaj or myself, Fia Quesa, at the email that's listed here. PCI_compliance@delaware.gov. We look forward to working with you. We look forward to you being able to complete your SAQ. And if you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, please let us know. This will conclude our SAQA workshop for today.